Okay, well, this one is even more fun than calling Europe, which is always fun because it's always sunshine in Santa Barbara and it's always nighttime in England. Uh, so that's fun. Being facetious, but I'm having a conversation as we speak with Margaret Brandman near Sydney, Australia, where she lives. It's Don't ask. It's 11 o'clock or something in the morning tomorrow from my time the day before in California. So it's marvelous. So the world is wonderful, and sometimes computers are a pain, but sometimes they're wonderful to be with. So it's a great pleasure to talk with you. We are going to speak about your CD, not your newest. We're going to mention that in a bit, but your CD, Sensations. Wind, Waves, Birds, and Fire. It's a Nirvana release from 2016, and it's a wonderful. This CD is a wonderful compilation of your music, Margaret. There is the orchestral segment, some beautiful string music of yours, and then there is the chamber music part. And I kind of what went through my mind was, here was the castle. I'm referring to the orchestral music that we're going to discuss in a bit. And then there was the jewel box, the little jewel box, somewhere in a corner of the castle, and that is the chamber music. This is just incredible chamber music, and I want the whole world to know about it. So those things we're going to talk about. But I want to start with your immigration, because it has a lot to do with the very title of this CD. You told me a few minutes ago. Your immigration, your family's immigration from Germany to Australia.
Well, my father's side of the family are Jewish, and they were living in Berlin. They were suffering the looting and the Kristallnacht event. We had a jewelry store in Berlin Mitte, and November, I think it was November the 9th, 1939, it was all damaged, and my grandfather and my father hid. And in fact, it was my mother's mother who hid them. And about a couple of years before, we had the Olympic Games in 1936, and by chance, the Australian New South Wales Commissioner for Police arrived in Berlin for the Games, came to the store. My uncle took him out for the day, showed him around, and they made a connection. And he said, "Look, if you ever need me, here's my card." And from 1938 onwards, my grandparents were applying to come to Australia, and they were sponsored by the New South Wales Commissioner of Police. So Kristallnacht happened. My grandfather was very upset and pacing up and down, wondering when the okay to come to Australia would come through. It eventually came in January 1939. They left and they arrived in Australia April 39, and of course the war broke out in September. So we were very lucky. My grandfather, grandmother, my father and his four siblings all escaped. And what you see in Sensations, the picture is of the Brandman with a double N shop, and they had a promotion in 34 somewhere. I'm guessing it was a family photo that I had, and it had Sensation on it. And I thought partly I would call the CD Sensations in homage to my family, but also because of all the sensations created in the music. So my grandfather's family came out first. My mother wasn't Jewish. She lived through the war in Berlin. My grandfather imported her to Australia in 1949 as a war bride. And he said, actually, look, I've got two lovely sons here. Pick one. And my dad, and here we are. But the families knew each other before the war through music. They used to have Musikabend in Germany. My mum was an amazing music teacher, accordion player, and all my dad's side played music too. And my grandfather was a marvellous tenor, and he became the first cantor at the Jewish synagogue here in Sydney.
Wow.
So we had music on both sides of the family.
And didn't you have didn't you have a music store or something in Sydney? I mean, didn't the family run a music store, or still maybe?
Yes. So mum started to supplement her income by teaching accordion, and then built up a music business. And after some years, my dad decided to come in that business with her, and it became Brandman Music Studios. And they ran it for 20 years here and trained a lot of marvelous musicians. And that was my training, with bands on stage a lot, music around me all day, every day. So there's no way I could avoid it.
And also one other tiny thing, I always have to get out the daggers on this one. I'll tell you why in a minute, but you have perfect pitch, yes or no?
Yes.
So my conducting mentor, Lawrence Layton Smith, also had perfect pitch, and it drove me crazy because he was light years ahead of me when it came to analysis, and he was trying to teach me analysis, and what I heard was gobbledygoosh, and what Larry heard was things. But he said there was a curse, and I always ask people with perfect pitch. He said every sound had a pitch to it, and it drove him crazy.
Yes. Well, the thing, of course, with perfect pitch is if you want to transpose, you've got to sort of turn it off. So I've learned to be able to do that, but also to be able to transpose and to work with relative pitch when transposing. So, I felt I was in ear training classes. I felt I was cheating because I just knew exactly what note was being played.
You were cheating, but it was an act of God, so we forgive you. All right.
Yeah. Actually, very quickly, my mum found out that I had the perfect pitch when I was about 5 or 6, and because we were teaching in the music in the house, she'd have the piano in the front room and I'd be in the kitchen, and she'd play a note and I'd say, "Oh, you're playing a G, Mum." And she said, "How do you know that?" And then when we built it up, she used to go and test it out. But I believe you get perfect pitch if you start music before you're 4 or 5 years old. It's a memory for the pitch, and particularly piano, of course, because that's the timbre that I understand.
Yeah, that's interesting. And also about you are a composer. I hope we've made that clear already. Wonderful composer. We're going to get there, I hope, soon. But the point is, just a little item you mentioned, before age 4, perhaps that's where perfect pitch is most able to set in, if that's the right word. But also, it also helps to be a composer from age 15. Give me a break. That's what I read. So you've just been doing it since forever, right?
Yeah. So, I accordion at 4, and then about age 6 piano, and then because we had the music studio and we had all sorts of teachers, I said, "Oh, I'd like to learn guitar," so I learned a bit of guitar and a bit of drums, and so I did a whole lot of things. And then we do have in Australia an examination system, a music examinations board, and you go to the teacher and you polish up 4 pieces for the year. I got so sick of playing the 4 pieces for the whole year, I was going to write my own music. So I started writing my own. And I was 15, or maybe even a little earlier when I started writing, 14 or 15.
Now and it apparently shows. Let's see, I'm trying to figure out where to go from here. Just a quick aside, I try to be, because I see from your career that you are multitasker. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Now I try multitasking. I really try hard every single day to multitask. And what I have read, and I find it very interesting, I hope I have it correct, is that women are much better at multitasking than men. How do you explain that, madam?
They say the science of it is that we have the corpus callosum, which connects both sides of our brain, and women's corpus callosum is larger, so we transfer more information from left brain to right brain. So that's the theory about it. That's what I've read, the science behind it. So it's we have more connections, and also being a musician in general makes you much more even brain. Left and right brain is much more even because of the fine motor control and for all the other processes that you're doing with music. So you should be pretty good as well.
Now, we've already, or I want to make sure and mention this before I know we're slowly getting there to have a little chat about the CD itself, but I want to kind of make sure of some things that I've read, and tell me if I'm correct, because I think it's very, very important that you have essentially said, I'm paraphrasing and I hope I get it right, that in a way, it's okay to write simpler music, to write music that people can sit down and play. Have I got a theory or a philosophy there? Tell me, am I correct at all or what?
Not necessarily simpler music. I've written a lot of music, didactic music for my piano methods, and I've done graded series of pieces for a particular level. But for instance, Autumn Rhapsody is quite a complex piece. It's not
Yeah. Oh yes.
necessarily.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's the piano. Is that the piano piece, isn't it? Is that
that's piano that I actually perform on
yeah.
that CD
Yeah,
myself.
and it's a sonata, really. It's
Well,
you
yes,
know
not sonata form, more
no,
through
but
composed,
you know what I
but
mean. It's a big work. It's a big piece. Beautiful,
yes.
beautiful. Yeah.
Um,
Um, did we
but
cover?
I think the thing, I suppose, the music. I want music that is um, that you can access and is not overly complicated and overly overblown. Um,
Mhm.
so you can go with the flow of the music. You can enjoy it. You can breathe. You can. Well, I
Relax.
suppose it's the phrasing and that eventually that you can sing the tune. I suppose Mozart liked us if we could sing his tunes as well. Um, and I've never gone down the track of the really dissonant music, which people were trying to get. It was a big fashion in the 60s and 70s that you had to write very, very angular music, and you had to be very, what I call scratchy, to be a great composer. um,
By the way, I have very few pieces from the 70s that I like. So it was a
yeah,
time, and it was a horribly disjointed time on the planet as well. So I mean, there are certain reasons for all of that, I think, anyway, philosophically. But
yeah.
yeah, wrong direction for a
I
lot of
would
them.
agree with that.
Yeah.
And so I just could not put myself in that role, and I wanted to just stick with what to me was genuine music, felt right, was right. And now that it's been recorded so well and the Moravian Philharmonic has performed it so beautifully, I think that it validates my position of sticking with it,
Well, not
sticking with
only
that way of doing things.
Not only that in terms of just the struggle and the blood, sweat, and tears of putting together a CD, but I just to linger a bit longer, and I perhaps misspoke. The word "simple" I did not quite mean it in the way it might have been interpreted. What I meant was I was thinking of your history as an educator, as you said, teaching piano, putting together method books, and so on. I really had the impression in like the first Love Brings Change, the lyric fantasy, these beautiful string pieces, that this was a kind of statement about, a community orchestra can sit down and play this, understand it, and so on. That's what I meant about simpler.
Yes,
Did I get
yes,
out of that hole? Okay.
yes.
Oh, good.
You did.
Okay. Now, on the other hand, we're starting to go through the thing. I'm not going to mention the everything on the CD, but the first half is orchestral music. The second half is chamber music. As I told you, that chamber music glitters like diamonds. It's amazing, wonderful stuff. But on the orchestral half, by the way, how did you make those decisions? I always want to ask. How did you figure out how you wanted to line up this music on your CD?
Uh, it had been music that I'd been writing over the last, say, 20 years, and I was sort of gathered the so the I suppose the top pieces that I had to make up the 60 minutes or a little longer on the CD. I'd also had a concert a couple of years before where I'd written those violin and piano pieces to be performed,
Hmm.
and so they were fairly fresh off the press, and um, they went well in the concert, so I chose those. I had played Spirit Visions, the two piano work, at a concert before that. They went over well, so I chose those ones. Traffic going past there.
Yes, lost
I
it.
chose these ones, and I just thought they would flow nicely from one to the other in the CD. They would, the
Hmm.
contrast and the nature of each piece worked well as a continuous listening experience, and I think it does.
Yes, it does. And as a calm person, you didn't pull your hair out or anything. There weren't horrible decisions that had to be made and stuff thrown on the cutting room floor, anything like that.
No, not particularly. No, well, as you know, I've done other CDs because the other work that I had, which was the saxophone quartet, which is now called the Warm Winds in Havana, that had an opportunity to be recorded and included on the Abrazo album. So so my European one was mainly string and piano based, and then my some of my woodwind pieces are on a different album. And as you know now, my songs, the Cosmic Wheel songs, as another genre on a different album. So it just sort of fitted. They seem to fit all the between the string orchestras and the chamber music for strings. That seemed to make a good fit for the CD.
And by the way, you allowed me just then, by slip of tongue, to skip about 3 questions and jump right down to, I hope, an amusing one for you. What's this Latin thing? You just finished telling me about a Latin piece. There are Latin pieces on the CD. They are charming is like an understatement. They are so wonderful. What is the love for this Latin rhythm and style and so on? Where'd it come from?
I think it came from Mum's accordion orchestras and playing the accordion and playing tangos like Jealousy. And we played a lot of sort of, I suppose, Argentinian music or something on the accordion. Then when I was in my late teens and into the next part of my life, I played in bands and we played a lot of Latin music. We played. I believe I'm a very good bossa nova player, so I play bossa nova and I love the rhythms. They really appeal to me. So I think it's come from playing them and being experienced in those different styles of music on the gig. Curiously, I've just had my DNA done some time back, and apart, you'd think I would be sort of all German or Northern European, but it turns out I'm 35% Italian in the DNA, so I feel I've got a bit of an affinity with maybe Italy, Spain. My hobby on Duolingo is learning Spanish at the moment, and I was lucky I already had a few words of Spanish before we went to Cuba to record. So I just feel that there is an underlying Spanish part of me.
Clearly, and I'm so glad I asked the question because you're a natural. And the other thing, I went to Cuba a couple of summers ago as well. An amazing country, and at so many levels: the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, beautiful, beautiful people that live there, and so on. Okay, this kind of was wrapping itself around your mission in a way as an educator, just to kind of get back on music. But now I want to speak about, and then we're going to move to the chamber music. I hope, if I got the time. Yeah. This symphony.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me title, story, verse, book, everything about that. It's an amazing narrative work. It is, and I'm using the word very carefully, but it too is accessible, and what I mean by that is the highest compliment. In other words, people will very clearly, when they hear the symphony, understand it. And it's a wonderful orchestral work in 3 movements, 3 sections, a great narrative. Your turn, tell us.
Okay, so when in the 1990s and early 2000s, I lived in the Blue Mountains in New South Wales, where I raised my children there, and it was in a bush setting. And, just like at the moment you've got those horrible fires in
my part of the road, yeah.
We have them in Australia almost every year. We have bad fires somewhere. But I actually experienced it in the house that I was living in, which is in Glenbrook, and we were on a battle axe block halfway down the mountain, in amongst the bush. And in 1994, we had some terrifying fires, and the neighbouring suburb lost about 10 and 12 houses, not necessarily exactly where we were, but the fire was very close. The possums were, trying to escape the fires in the trees just in our little property. We had a half an acre property. And I just felt that all those feelings and emotions around the whole experience, and into 6 months later when the trees were regrowing, was quite a strong feeling for me. And curiously enough, my mum rang me and she said, I had a dream you were going to write some music about this fire. And my mother was quite intuitive, and anyway, so
a Pisces,
actually,
no doubt.
sorry,
Was she a Pisces by any chance?
No, she was a Libra.
Oh, well. Because I'm talking about your piece that we'll mention on the way out about anyway the 12 signs of the zodiac. Wow.
Yes, yeah. So I actually had originally in mind writing for the classical accordion, because you can create the wind sounds with the bellows, and all those effects. But it grew from a small work into the symphony over the years, and then we had another fire in 2001. And at that point, I decided to start working on orchestrating it. The storyline really is, I could see from the house we were in, I could see the fires starting about 50 miles in the distance, because we were up in the mountains, and you could see them, and you could see them gradually coming towards you, and it was getting scarier and scarier. And you have a very still days, very hot and still, with nothing's going, and then once that wind starts, all the debris starts flowing, and the embers start coming, and you're going to be in trouble. Then of course the fire's gone past, and you've had all the drama, and then you've got the devastation. So as I mentioned, like those 12 houses have been completely devastated in that particular fire. So everything's black, and everyone's crying, and everybody's very down. They also had another fire event a few years later where I incorporated the sound of the three bells, because they were fires. I haven't got the date exactly right. It might have been 2006 in Victoria, and then they had a memorial service for all the people that died, and they rang the bell 3 times, and then they did a homage to the person. So start begins with the sound of those 3 bells, which acknowledges the people that died. And
very moving, and beautifully thought, beautifully conceived. Great idea.
And lots of descending themes in the second movement. So like crying and being, but even the second movement, I think some of my Spanish things come through in the second movement. Not the rhythm side, but the sounds.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Not exactly, but what I was thinking while you were telling us about the slow movement, if you will, of the symphony, about the lamentation, the bells ringing for the dead, and so on. What I get as an overview of who you are, aside from being an entrepreneur, we haven't even gone there. We'll have to save that for another time. But it is this attitude, and it's an attitude of calm and perseverance and steady, and let's calm anger and even grief and so on. So congrats, hats off.
I must say also I did Reiki course in 1994, and then again level 2 in 1996, and the Reiki philosophy is just for today, don't anger. Just for today, let go. Just for today. And then you can let the universe organize your life rather than pushing and being stressed. And so I think part of what comes through is my Reiki, which is just in my system. I don't practice it. I'm not a practitioner or anything, but I have it in my hands, and if I want, I have that. So I think that helps, and I think that comes through in a lot of my music. I did write a piece called When Spirits Soar for saxophone and piano in 1996 or 1994 after doing the first Reiki thing, and I noticed my music sort of changed at that time to breathe and to be more expansive.
Well, it wouldn't it? I mean, that was an epiphany. That experience was an epiphany experience. In my own case, I reach a certain point and then I just go to bed. You know what I mean? Whereas some people will fret and fume and storm and freak out into the wee hours. I said at a certain point, he said, "Nah, I'll get some energy back."
That's right. Yeah.
So having
no point eating yourself up about something. You just keep calm and carry on.
Exactly. Thank you to His or Her Majesty, whoever put that thing together, that statement together during the war. By the way, during the Second World War, as everybody knows. Now I want to move to the chamber music, and I want to
just mention
yes, please.
Sure.
Oh, please. Sorry.
Okay. We're halfway through. So
Sure.
in the second movement, then there's this little hint of something surfacing and bubbling up again with the bird sounds in the second movement, and then in the third movement there's this lively rhythmic. It's actually in 11/8 because
I've been trying to figure that meter out. It's so much fun.
I love using odd times. That's I suppose I was listening to a lot of Dave Brubeck when I was younger too. So things in I think it was the Don Sebesky Orchestra with things from Romanian Ride and Romanian sounds. I love all those unusual rhythms and things. So
I love the way you do your shoulders when you're describing that. That's hilarious.
Well, there's the rhythm thing that comes. It's such an exciting thing to do. So the third movement is it's almost a funky symphony. Because I've got that 11/8 and the little main little phrase is almost bluesy funky. So I've written a symphony, but it's not stuffy. It's hopefully lively and it will. It's that movement's been on air in Australia many times. They played that third movement. They played the whole thing a week ago, and it was also on in America with Marvin Rosen's Classical Discoveries for his program that he was having to say, we've got 12 years to save the planet, let's do some things. And he played Firestorm Symphony just a couple of weeks ago, which is lovely.
Wonderful. And how does I'm going to skip now a little bit. We've got to get down to the chamber music. Now here's my problem. I live in a Spanish-speaking part of the world, and I think before we do anything else, let's talk about hope I don't have it quite to hand, but the Moravian Symphony Orchestra. Is that Prague-based? It's a Czech orchestra, right? Who is it?
They're in a town called Olomouc, which is 2 hours east on the fast train, and it's a World Heritage town with a Trinity monument in the middle, and they have their dedicated concert hall and recording area there. And Petr Vronsky was the conductor, and they I believe from what Palmer Recordings told me, they do a lot of film music anyway. And when we were discussing which orchestra would be suitable for my stuff, he felt that they have a very beautiful, sweet string sound.
Oh, nice. Which they do, yes. Yeah, and in the orchestral section there are at least 2 string pieces, beautiful pieces, wonderful.
Yeah, there's two string only pieces, and then there's the piano and string piece, Lyric Fantasy.
Yeah, and then the big piece, the full orchestral piece. How do folks respond to? Here goes my Spanish. Jucarro rumba d'amor. That's a beauty, by the way. Hello, fiddle and piano, and we've talked about the orchestra and the conductor of the orchestra. He is the conductor of the Moravian Symphony. I hope I'm pronouncing it properly. Your soloist. And did you meet them for the first time? You know how you send stuff over, they prepare, that kind of an experience?
That was the first time, yeah. The violinist was Müzik, which looks like music in English, but means something else in Czech. Great name. He was the concertmaster of the orchestra, and he and Lucy Kauka performed the violin and piano works. When Petr Vronsky was doing the orchestral works, Veep was sitting with me, and we were working on the scores together, following the scores while the recording was being done. So I had marvelous players do the
Yeah, fabulous musicians, beautiful, and again the selections. I'm glad you pronounced their names. I was puzzled and thought, no, I'm not going to even try to pronounce this pianist and violinist name. Let me just again hope I'm pronouncing things properly. But Binabura Dreaming.
Yes.
That's like a masterpiece. Hello. for the
Wow.
repertoire, for the chamber music repertoire, what I'm saying, hello everybody out there who are musicians, pay attention. Here is a ton of fabulous chamber music repertoire for two pianos, for violin and piano. What else? What am I forgetting?
Solo piano work.
This Autumn, yes, something.
Autumn Rhapsody.
Thank you. Autumn
Uh,
Rhapsody was it's gorgeous, beautiful, and it's
it's
an extended. It's maybe that's the one I was thinking was sort of sonata in terms of its largeness of form. It's a full-on, beautiful, beautiful piano piece. I mean, it should be much more performed in the repertoire.
Thank you very much. Yeah, actually, Palmer's just put out a Spotify playlist for right now, and they've included. It's called Fresh Fall Classical, so they've included Autumn Rhapsody in their playlist
Oh,
for
oh,
Spotify,
good,
which makes
nice,
sense because it's
beautiful,
right now.
yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Thank you for that.
Sure. Well, it's easy. Let's see. We've talked about all of your idiosyncrasies. We've talked about your Latin thing. You know, I mentioned earlier about being an entrepreneur. I mean, your career is not the academic, has not been the academic career, nor could mine ever have been. So believe me, I'm simpatico, and it's hard. It's hard. So congratulations, especially as a woman in this world of ours, to have such a success. This will be the give us the title of the third CD that's about to come out. I have it somewhere. Uh,
Oh, it's the Cosmic Wheel of the Zodiac.
there she
Is
goes,
that
holding up the CD. Come on, come in closer, a little closer. That'll do it. Cosmic Wheel of the Zodiac. Thank you. I remember now. Yeah,
yeah?
and that's a song cycle, right?
That's correct. Yeah, that was mother of one of my students from many many years ago. We've become very good friends, and her name is Benita Rayner, and she's an astrologer and a poet. And she came to me with the idea of doing a song cycle of one for every sign of the zodiac. And she presented me with such wonderful prose and with such deep meaning and for the for the human condition. Even though you might say I don't believe in the star signs, what she has in the lyrics are everyday things that we all experience. She ends one tune with the words "for true harmony," and she ends another one with "and we'll find ourselves at home with one another." Beautiful,
Mm.
beautiful sayings in there, and I got very inspired to do the songs for her. And I have a beautiful, wonderful colleague, Martin Cook, who sings in the Bavarian State Opera chorus, and he contacted me 5 years ago to say, was I related to Joan Brandman? I said yes. I said that was my aunt. And he happened to go to the opera when his singing teacher gave him the ticket to go one day when she was sick, and he sat next to my aunt Joan Brandman at the opera. And he contacted me from Munich. He's an Australian, but he's been living in Germany for over 20 years. And we got to know each other, and he said, I'd like to sing some more Australian songs. So I have written quite a number of songs for Martin, and he came to Australia and we did a launch, and I had the whole song cycle ready for him as a solos in 2016. And we did a wonderful concert together here at the Sydney Conservatorium in the concert hall. And then I thought they went over very well. I would make them choral pieces as well.
I was
So
going to ask because it's the Prague Chamber Choir, something like that, is
yes.
on that CD. Yeah.
So that particular CD has both solo versions, some duet versions, and all choral versions of all 12 songs. So 2 versions of each song, which each one
Nice.
is. Well, once you set it for choir, you get all the different ambience, and then you can work with the chords and the harmonies and get some beautiful sounds for the extended for voices, and but even the solos as well themselves are very strong. So,
Well, we
so
lost
they
you just a little bit there, which is a perfect opportunity to say we better quit because we're getting on
okay.
35 minutes. Let's just do a little rundown because I forgot to mention that I am going to put up my remarks about the CD. I'm going to put up our video interview at performingartsreview.net. That's my website for these sorts of things. Margaret is going to have her own page with sensations, Wind, Waves, Birds and Fire. This wonderful CD is going to be there with excerpts and audio and click to buy and all that good stuff. I think your book even didn't, or have I got somebody else?
Yeah, maybe
I
something
have
else.
somebody else. So sorry. So forget the book.
I've written many music books, but
Oh, there you go. Anyway, it'll be chock and block the site, so I can't wait to get it up as quickly as I can. Then I'll follow with my remarks. But again, we just talked about her CD, Sensations, Wind, Waves, Birds, and Fire, and we've had a wonderful talk about the real meaning of that CD. But it's a release by Navona. They put out wonderful releases of chamber music, released in 2016. This is part orchestral, part chamber music. Wonderful material. Hello, everybody, pay attention. Come to my website when I can snag you and have a look. Especially the chamber music, incredible. And there's the string pieces are they public domain? Can you run out and buy them?
They're available from my website. Yes,
Yeah.
if you come to my website, you can purchase the scores. Some of the scores are produced by the Australian Music Centre, but all the links are there on my website to purchase all the scores.
Perfect.
So they're all available.
Okay, and your website will definitely be up on your page at performingartsreview.net. So we're done. Many thanks. We're still trying to figure out the hours. It gets a little tricky after about 12 hours. It gets a little complicated, but we made it work. I'm going to be. You know that I'm going to be interviewing one of your students tomorrow.
Yes. Oh, that's tomorrow, is it? Okay.
John McEntro.
Yeah, McEntro. Mark McEntro.
Mark McEntro, I can never get that right. In any case, so it's interesting. Two in a row interviews in Australia. Many thanks indeed. We're done.
Okay, thank you so much.
Righto. Bye-bye.
Enjoy your day. Bye.